While some on Wall Street are panicking, our own Hillary Vaughn went to find out how Main Street really feels.
I'm not worried about it because I don't plan to cash it out anytime soon.
I know there's a lot of volatility in the market, so at this point I think it's just best to try and stay calm.
What I like about Wall Street right now is that it's like going to Vegas. It's going to be a hit or a miss. So there's nothing to worry about.
Just look away. Yes, it seems like those Americans are pretty even-keeled about everything going on in the market. Our next guest is someone who hears from everyday Americans all the time on his radio program. Let's bring in Herman Cain, former presidential candidate, former CEO of Godfather Pizza. He is also a Fox News contributor. What do you think of those folks you just heard? Do they sound like your listeners?
They sound like my listeners, and here's why. Most people are not what you call algorithmic traders. When it moves up a little bit, then they want to take advantage of it, or they move down a little bit. Most of them don't look at it. They look at it long term. So those people sound like long-term investors, like most people, with respect to the volatility that's going on in the stock market. So I think that they are right on track, and that's what I'm hearing from people every day.
No, it's true. I mean, every time we've had one of these big falls, if you got out and you locked in those losses, you were so sorry, maybe a year later, whatever it was, that people have been sort of conditioned to, what's going on, you're watching, but you're trying not to react to it. And that's probably the right thing to do. What do you think is their biggest concern right now when you talk to regular folks, the vast majority of people in this country?
I think their biggest concern is whether or not this correction is going to go below 20,000. Remember, a year ago, we were at 18,000. So we've had a lot of gains since then. So if we correct 10% this week, 10% next week, we're still way ahead of the game. And I think that the message that it sends to people that they're responding to is don't panic, don't do anything crazy, just stay calm and stay the course. I think that's the message that most people are starting to understand.
It's also possible that they've gotten the feeling of the disconnect between the market and their own pocketbook. I mean, we saw under President Obama, the market kept going up and up, and regular people were falling, working Americans were falling more and more behind in terms of their take-home pay and their regular income. At this point in time right now, everybody's seeing a little bit more in their paycheck. They're seeing wages go up, and that's part of what the stock market is reacting to, is that inflation that's helping the average person, and they're seeing in their wages. So they're probably feeling pretty good. Hopefully they remember that it's about that instead of about the market necessarily. What do you think?
I agree with you. During the Obama administration, people were sometimes making decisions that may not have been the normal decisions that they would make about certain stocks because they were trying to make up for the fact that the wages weren't going up. They were having a hard time finding a full-time job if they had some stocks. So I think that maybe the motivation during the Obama administration was totally different than the motivation here. Here, people are willing to be more patient and wait because they see that the fundamentals of the market are still very strong.
And what do you think about business owners? I mean, I want to put your business owner hat back on. What is the economic climate like out there right now?
The economic climate for business owners is optimism. Yeah. And it's optimistic because of the regulatory rollback of 2017. They're optimistic about the tax cuts plan that's in place because they've already calculated how much cash they're going to have available to expand their business or reward their employees in 2018 because the new tax plan is the law of the land. So I think it is positive, and it starts with a positive tone from the top. Business owners are ecstatic about what's going on right now.
And do they feel secure about the fact, I mean, obviously regulation has gone down, their taxes have gone down, but wages are going up. We heard about that in inflation, and there's some commodity inflation in terms of their inputs. We're seeing that out there. Right. So that does have to make some people nervous. I mean, you are a pizza guy. The cost of fuel, the cost of cheese, the cost of pepperoni, God forbid, it's got to stay within reach.
I would agree. But business owners aren't worried about being able to pay their employees more if they have the money to do so.
Yeah.
And you've already seen this in some of the bonuses that have been presented to people early in this fiscal year. But you're absolutely right. Business owners don't worry as much about interest rates that are going to be stimulated by the Federal Reserve or interest rates that are going to be passed on by the banks as much as they worry about their ability to grow their business and take care of their employees. That's not their top concern.
Herman Cain, thank you. Appreciate your time.
My pleasure.